I was working on another section about the Pali tradition, which I find very interesting. It's talking about the four elements, okay? So in ancient times, in the East and in the West, people saw material things as combinations of the four elements. So earth, water, fire, and air. And so in the Buddhist traditions, these are not seen as individual particles of the elements, but rather properties. Okay, so earth is the property of hardness and resistance. Water is the property of fluidity and cohesion because things stick together when they're wet. Heat is fire is the property of heat and maturation because it's involved in digestion, and when the seasons are warm, the fruit ripens. And wind is the property of movement. One way to meditate on selflessness is to go through each of the four elements, okay? And each element has an internal aspect and an external aspect. So the internal aspect of the earth element are all the hard things in our body, the bones, the muscles, the tissue, things like that, where there's resistance and some degree of hardness. By the way, they say that actually all four elements come together in a particle. So, but one is dominant, okay? So in some organs, and aspects of our body, the earth element is dominant. In others, the water is blood. Lymph is liquid, yeah. Urine, tears, okay, those kinds of things. And then fire. So the fire element is chiefly involved with digestion and, keeping warm. So I guess it would be the the part of the body that burns, the metabolism. Thank you. Yeah. And then wind would be the wind aspects, the movement, our limbs move and there's wind in the body. You burp, you fart, things like that. Okay. So, but each of them also have an outer aspect. So the table, the predominant one is earth. In tea, predominant is water. In with fire, predominant is hot lunch. With wind, predominant is probably bubbles in your Coke, something like that. Okay, so it's very interesting how we divide it into internal and external of the two elements, but how the two go back and forth, okay, because there's something externally hard, there's broccoli, and so it's external earth element, but you eat it and it becomes internal earth element. And then within a few days, it's burned up in metabolism or it comes out the other end, again becoming external earth element. Same with the liquid. You drink tea, which is external water element, it becomes internal water element. Yeah, to feed your blood and lymph and things like that. Then it goes out in urine, it becomes external. So if we look, with the fire and the wind too, we have this interplay between the internal and the external elements, and something being one, then going to the other, then going back and forth. Okay, so I like to pause at this point in the meditation because it's very interesting to observe. When we think of our body, it's like, oh, okay, this is the internal earth element, and this is extremely important. This is mine, my arm and it enables me to move and things like that. But when the skin, becomes the external earth element, when it, the cells change and become external, then they aren't so important. Yeah. But then I also need external earth element to eat, to nourish my body. Yeah. And so to watch how our mind relates, it's the earth element, whether it's internal or external. It's the same earth element. There's no change. Except that changing moment by moment, but I mean that its nature is not changing. But how differently we regard it when it's affiliated with our body than when it's not affiliated with our body. Yeah, very interesting to observe that. And very interesting to watch. Usually, according to our precepts, we can't look at other people's bowls. But here, it's very interesting. Look at somebody else's bowl and look at yours. And they both have, some aspect of earth, water, fire, wind element in the food. Yeah. And you're eating your bowl of food, and that's going to become your internal four elements, which you will care dearly about. Okay. And you don't care so much about what your friends' four elements, unless one of them is chocolate cake. Uh, but it doesn't matter. But what's interesting is if you switched bowls, yeah, then what was going to be in the future, your friends' internal four elements now become your internal four elements, and they become greatly meaningful to you. And, so all you need to do is switch bowls and how different the mind relates to that external four elements, depending upon whether it's going to go in this mouth or that mouth. Okay? So watching how it changes from when it's external to internal, from when it's my other's food to my food. Okay. So I think that's very, very interesting. Yeah. So you do this with the four elements and seeing internal, external, back and forth. And then you ask the three questions that the Buddha always asked in the Pali Suttas. So is this mine? Yeah. So this, the broccoli in my bowl, yeah, is this mine? Is this I? Is this myself? And when I put it in my mouth and chew it, and it starts to get digested and form all my other beautiful organs inside, that liver is just so gorgeous, yeah, the song you sing about, your song about the body. Then is that broccoli, is that earth element, now that the broccoli's in my body, now is it mine? Is it I? Is it myself? Yeah. And to really look, well, that digested broccoli, that's probably not I. But sometimes I think of my body as I. Yeah, when you say I'm sleepy or I'm tired or I'm sick, I say that, but is that internal element really a person, really I? Okay, and it doesn't seem to be myself. I wouldn't call the earth element myself. But what about mine? It's my earth element. Seems to be mine, doesn't it? Then you have to say, what makes it mine? Yeah, what makes it mine? Why do I call this mine? What makes it mine? And what does mine really mean? Because we use my and mine a lot. But what does it really mean? Yeah. And how does something become mine? And what does it mean to be mine? Yeah. When the car's on the showroom floor, when the car is in my garage, the car's the same, but it changed because now it's mine. But what does it mean to be mine if the car is pretty much the same car? What is it that makes it mine? Yeah. So you get into this whole examination, yeah, of what is mine and what is I and what is myself. Yeah. And especially when you're examining how each of the four elements goes back and forth like that. Yeah. So very, very interesting. Okay, so that's one meditation. Yeah, yeah. Another one that goes along with that is to look at the elements, internal and external, and say, are they permanent or impermanent? And really meditate on that, are they permanent or impermanent? Yeah. And are they in the nature of suffering? Are they dukkha or not dukkha? And are they self or not self? Yeah. And sometimes when you do this, you go from they're impermanent to because they're impermanent, therefore they're the nature of dukkha. Because they're unstable, we can't rely on them. We're going to have to separate from them. Okay, and then of course, if it's impermanent and it's dukkha, then it can't be self, because here what we're thinking of is a permanent, blissful self that is independent of causes and conditions and that is substantially existent. Yeah. And so clearly it's not that. So you go through the three characteristics in that way. Although some people can start with, is it permanent? Well, it's not impermanent. And then they can go directly to, then it's not a self. Yeah, without doing they get the dukkha thing so quickly that they don't need to spend much time on it. They go to the self part. Okay, so that's kind of a second meditation to do when we're talking about the four elements. Okay. So quite interesting to do and to examine. Mm-hmm. And really, again, it's asking us to consider what is this body, and what is our relationship with it, and what is a healthy relationship with